2,000 years ago, a man sat down and wrote letters to his friend about how to live. He wrote about time, death, friendship, wealth, anger, and fear. He wrote with a directness and warmth that feels nothing like ancient philosophy. It feels like a text from someone who genuinely cares about your life. Today, we're breaking down Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, one of the most important collections of philosophical writing in history, and somehow still one of the most readable. These aren't dusty academic arguments. They're practical, urgent, and deeply personal. Let's get into it. Takeaway 1. The very first letter begins with what Seneca considers the most important topic of all: time. Not money, not reputation, not health. Time, he writes. Gather and save the time which is still being torn from you, stolen from you, or which slips away. Seneca was writing to his friend Lucilius, and he opens immediately with this observation: most of us don't realize our time is being taken from us. We give it away carelessly. We waste it on things that don't matter. We let other people's demands consume it. And then one day we look back and wonder where our life went. He makes a distinction that should stop you cold. There's a difference between having a long life and making good use of the life you have. Most people who die at 80 haven't lived 80 years, they've lived maybe 10 years, repeated 8 times. The same habits, the same complaints, the same distractions, on loop. The practice, at the end of every day, account for your time, not obsessively, but honestly. What did you give your hours to today? Was it worth it? Takeaway 2. Seneca is brutal about the people we call busy. He writes that the busiest people he knew were the emptiest. They fill every hour with activity precisely because they can't stand to be alone with their thoughts. Busyness is often avoidance in a respectable costume. He saw this everywhere in Rome. Politicians who were never still. Businessmen who couldn't rest. People who traveled constantly, looking for something they never found. He observed that they weren't pursuing life, they were fleeing themselves. The person who can sit alone quietly for an hour, comfortable in their own mind, is far richer than the person who needs constant stimulation. Seneca calls this retreating into yourself, and he considers it one of the highest practices. What are you avoiding by staying busy? That's worth at least 10 minutes of honest reflection. Takeaway 3. One of Seneca's most powerful ideas is about philosophy as a practice, not a subject. He's frustrated with people who study philosophy like a hobby, collecting ideas, debating theories, showing off their learning without ever applying any of it. He writes, philosophy promises, above all, common sense, humanity, and community. It's not an intellectual game. It's a manual for living. Every insight, if it doesn't change how you live, is just decoration. He pushes Lucilius constantly to stop waiting to start living well. Not when I have more money. Not when I've read more, not when conditions are better. Now. The philosopher lives now, not in some imagined future when all the conditions are perfect. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. There are things within your power and things outside it. Philosophy teaches you to focus only on what's within your power. Your judgments, your responses, your character, everything else is negotiable. Takeaway 4. Seneca has a fascinating letter about crowds and how they corrupt the mind. He's not being antisocial, he loves people. But he observes that when you spend too much time absorbing the anxieties, appetites, and opinions of large groups, you lose your own center. He writes, I never come back home quite the same character I went out. Something of what I have put in order within myself is disturbed. This is strikingly modern. Social media, news cycles, office politics, they all function exactly as Seneca described crowds. They constantly tell you what to want, what to fear, what to think. If you don't have a strong internal compass, you'll be swept away. His prescription: choose your companions carefully. Spend time with people who elevate you. And balance social time with genuine solitude where you can hear your own thoughts again. Takeaway 5. Seneca's letters on wealth are some of the most nuanced ever written. He's not anti-wealth. He was personally very wealthy. But he's deeply suspicious of the relationship most people have with money. He writes, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. This is a psychological insight disguised as an economic one. Poverty of spirit has nothing to do with your bank account. The richest people he knew were miserable because they always needed more. The poorest people he knew were content because they had mastered their desires. His practice was periodically living as if he had nothing, eating plain food, wearing simple clothes, sleeping on a hard surface, not as punishment, but as inoculation. He wanted to prove to himself that he didn't need his wealth to be okay. Once he knew that, he could enjoy his wealth without being enslaved by it. Could you spend a week living as if you had significantly less? What would that reveal about your relationship with money? Takeaway 6. There's a letter about the shortness of life that completely reframes how we think about aging and death. Seneca writes that people complain about the shortness of life, but the problem isn't that life is short, it's that we waste most of it. You will hear many people say, "After my 50th year, I shall retire into leisure. My 60th year shall release me from public life." And what guarantee do you have that your life will last longer? Who will allow that course of events which you have arranged for yourself to proceed as you plan? He's saying, stop treating your real life as something that starts after you finish your obligations. This is your real life, right now. The person who says, "I'll start living when I retire," may never get to retirement. And even if they do, the habit of deferral is so ingrained they won't know how to begin. What are you waiting to do until conditions are right? Start a version of it today. Takeaway 7. Seneca writes beautifully about friendship. He argues that a friend is someone with whom you can speak with complete frankness, someone you trust so entirely that there's no performance, no self-editing, no agenda. He calls this rare and says it's worth more than almost anything. He warns against having too many friends because genuine friendship requires real investment of time and self. Superficial connections are the enemy of deep ones. A man with 1,000 acquaintances has no friends. The Stoic view of friendship is demanding. A true friend must be worthy of your full trust before you share yourself with them. But once you've decided someone is a true friend, hold nothing back. Share everything, your hopes, your fears, your failures, your philosophy. How many people do you have with whom you can speak with complete frankness? If the answer is 0, that's the most important thing to change. Takeaway 8. One of Seneca's most famous passages is about anger. He wrote an entire essay on it, and the letters touch on it repeatedly. He believed anger was one of the most destructive forces a person could harbor, not because it hurts others, but because it destroys the person who holds it. He writes, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. The person who wronged you may have moved on, but you're still carrying the wound, still feeding the fire, still being damaged by something that's already over." The Stoic prescription for anger is delay. When you feel rage rising, insert a pause. Wait, don't speak, don't act. In almost every case, the anger passes before the window to act does. And when you act from a calmer place, you almost always make a better decision. What are you angry about right now? Is carrying it helping you or harming you? Takeaway 9. Seneca writes extensively about preparing for adversity in advance, a practice the Stoics called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not pessimism, strategy. He recommends regularly imagining the worst possible outcomes: illness, financial ruin, loss of loved ones, exile, and emotionally working through them before they happen. This serves two purposes. It removes the sting of surprise when bad things happen, and it reveals how much of what you fear would actually be survivable. Most of what we dread never arrives, and most of what does arrive, we can survive. The Stoics wanted you to know that in your bones before the crisis hit, so when it did, you'd already done the emotional math and found the answer. I can handle this. Write down your 3 greatest fears. For each one, ask, if this happened, what would I do? Walk through it. You'll find the fear is smaller than you thought. Takeaway 10. The final letters in the collection deal with death directly. Seneca knew he was aging, and he didn't look away from it. He writes with remarkable peace about his own mortality, not because he didn't value life, but because he had lived it so fully that death held no terror. He writes, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." Balance life's books each day. That phrase alone is worth the entire book. Did you do what mattered today? Did you say what needed saying? Did you love the people you love? Did you live by your values? If yes, today was a good day, regardless of what happened. If no, tomorrow is a chance to do better. That's it. That's the whole Stoic practice. 2,000 years old, and it's never been more relevant. What's one letter from Seneca you want to find and read this week? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for weekly breakdowns of the books that actually change how you live.